All right, let's talk about something that pretty much all of us have struggled with at some point, getting a good night's sleep. And today, we're going to look at it in a way you might not have before, as a skill, something you can actually train your brain to do better.
Welcome to SciSage, where everything is simple.
You know that feeling, right? It's 3 a.m., you're staring at the ceiling, just tossing and turning. It is so frustrating. And it's not just about feeling tired the next day. It has this massive impact on pretty much every part of our lives, especially our mental health. And if you're not convinced of that connection, just look at this number. It is staggering. A study found that when people finally resolved their insomnia, a full 87% of them saw major significant improvements in their depression symptoms. I mean, that's not a small thing. That is a powerful direct link that shows just how absolutely crucial sleep is. So let's really dig into that. Because poor sleep isn't just a side effect of mental health issues, it can actually be a primary cause, or at the very least, make things a whole lot worse. And this brings us to the core idea of this whole explainer. You can't just force yourself to sleep. It doesn't work like a light switch you can just flick on. No. Instead, we have to think of it more like strengthening a muscle. We need to actually train our brain to know when it's time to rest. And that whole training process, that has a name: sleep hygiene. And it's really just a simple set of habits and practices you build into a routine. The whole goal is to create these powerful signals for your brain and your body that say, okay, hey, it's time to power down now. And I absolutely love this idea because it puts the power right back in your hands. Sleep isn't something you either have or you don't. It is a skill, and just like any other skill, you can get better at it with consistent practice. And honestly, this way of thinking is so powerful. Our brains, as complex as they are really just creatures of habit. You know, just like a toddler thrives on a consistent bedtime routine, or how Pavlov's dogs learn to associate a bell with food, our brains learn to associate certain cues with sleep. So we're going to build those cues. Okay, so how do we actually do this? How do we build those habits? Well, it starts way earlier than you might think. Your sleep training doesn't begin an hour before bed. Nope. The things you do all day long are what set the stage for success or failure. All right, here are the fundamentals for your daytime. If you nap, keep it short, under 30 minutes so you're still tired at night. Try to get at least 10 minutes of exercise. It really does make a huge difference. Caffeine, we all know it's a stimulant, so you want to cut that off 4 to 6 hours before bed. And alcohol. This one's tricky. It might make you feel sleepy and help you doze off, but it really messes up your sleep quality later in the night. And finally, try to avoid those big, heavy meals right before you lie down. Okay, now for the main event. This is where you create those really powerful, almost reflexive associations for sleep. Your wind-down routine is, without a doubt, the most important part of your brain's training program. So here's how you build the perfect environment for sleep. First, consistency is king. Try to stick to a regular sleep and wake schedule, even on the weekends. I know, it's tough. Then, about an hour before bed, dim the lights. This is such a crucial signal. Make sure your room is nice and cool, and swap out high-energy stuff like watching the news for something calm, like reading a book, a real book. Now let's zoom in on screens because, let's be honest, they are the biggest hurdle for most of us. And while stressful content is definitely a problem, the real issue here is biological. The actual light coming out of your phone or your tablet is sending a powerful, ancient signal directly to your brain. And this illustrates it perfectly. For like millennia, our brains have been trained by nature. The bluish light of the morning sun tells our brain, hey, it's time to wake up, be alert. Well, guess what? Our screens mimic that exact same light. On the flip side, the warm red and yellow tones of a sunset or a campfire, that signals it's time to wind down. So when you're staring at your phone at night, you're literally sending your brain a wake-up message. It's no wonder we can't sleep. So here's your simple, actionable plan. First, use settings like night shift on your devices to make the screen color warmer. Second, turn the brightness all the way down. But honestly, the best rule, the gold standard, is to just put all screens away completely at least an hour before you plan to sleep. Okay, this one is a biggie. To create the strongest possible association, your brain needs to know that when you get into bed, it is time for sleep. That's it. If you're working in bed, eating in bed, watching TV, your brain just gets confused and starts associating your bed with being awake. You have to protect that space. But what happens when you do everything right and you still find yourself wide awake in the middle of the night? It is unbelievably frustrating. But don't worry, there's a strategy for this too.
So here's the trigger. You've been tossing and turning for what feels like 20 minutes, maybe more. It's time to act. Please, don't just lie there getting more and more worked up about it.
This is called the 20-minute rule, and I know it sounds counterintuitive, but it works. Get out of bed. The whole point is to break that cycle of associating your bed with the stress of not sleeping. Go to another room, keep the lights super low, and do something incredibly boring, like listen to a dull audiobook or read a user manual. Anything but your phone. And you only go back to bed when you feel sleepy again. So as we wrap up, I really want you to remember this. You are not going to be perfect every single night, and that is totally okay. The goal here isn't one perfect night of sleep. The goal is building a consistent pattern over time. That is how you successfully train your brain. So I'll leave you with this question. You don't have to do everything all at once. That's overwhelming. Just think, what is the one small change, the one little habit from all of this that you can commit to trying tonight?